had a remarkable escape last weekend. Give a big round of applause for Vimes the dog. OK, Marion, tell us the story about what happened. You were minding him when your daughter Deirdre was on honeymoon because it's her dog.
They were on their honeymoon, and last Sunday we decided to go to Kilkee for a walk on the cliff. So we took our dog and Vimes with us. We were being doubly careful. We had the lead intertwined in his harness. We put leads on them before we took them out of the car, so we were pretending they were twins, actually, in expectation. So...
no pressure, Deirdre.
No pressure. But coming down the cliff, my husband took the two dogs because it was rather steep and I had some difficulty. So when I called him at one stage and asked him to give me back our dog called Monty, the leads got intertwined at that stage, and in the handover, Vimes' lead fell to the ground. And I was standing actually just 2 steps behind him. Dermot was ahead of him. And I just said to myself, in a second, he has nowhere to go. I didn't think that he would actually go forward into the Atlantic Ocean. He just took 2 steps when we went to get the lead and basically disappeared. I got the fright of my life. Nearly froze. There was a guy, we had no phones, they were in the car. There was a guy at the top of the cliff, Frank McNamara, to whom we were eternally grateful. He got the phones, he came to us, they rang Valencia Coast Guard. You felt a little bit foolish, but still kind of horrified at the same time. Valencia rang Kilkee Coast Guard unit, and we were kept in touch then with what was going on with somebody else who was on another phone to a guy called Tony Burke, who was on radio at the Coast Guard station. So with all that in hand, I think it was probably the longest 20 to 30 minutes of my life. They had to muster the crew to come over. Like where we were was on the west side of the bay, above the Diamond Rocks Cafe, and the Coast Guard station is at the east side. So it maybe took 20 minutes to 30 minutes for them to come over. But they, and in the meantime, I said I would drive across the town over to the Coast Guard station to welcome the dog home. And the Mullingar Backward Club members were there, and they guaranteed me that the Coast Guard would get them, and if they couldn't get them, that they would. I think they were nearly waiting for a challenge at that stage. But the Coast Guard unit couldn't get him on the first go because he had actually fallen into the sea, swam back to shore, was on a ledge, and we were able to hear through phones and radios what he was doing. He's walking up and down the ledge, he's curling up into sleep, he's looking out to sea, just like he is now. And I said, oh, please stay there. But the Coast Guard boat, they put 2 kayaks on the rib, went back again, and they had to, I think, get bodily into the kayaks off the rib and maybe climb up to the ledge then to get him. So maybe after about 2 hours, Martoni Vahan, a member of the Coast Guard unit, handed him back to me at the unit, at the Coast Guard unit in Kilkee, and I'm eternally grateful to them.
Meanwhile, Deirdre, your daughter's on honeymoon. So how did you hear about Vimes?
On Twitter. As you know, Miriam, I spent a lot of time on Twitter. We had been offline for a couple of days because it's hard to get Wi-Fi and you don't really want to be online during your honeymoon. But we just checked into our beautiful hotel in Florence and we were looking around at it and admiring it. And Brian had looked at his Wi-Fi and he said, hang on a minute, here's an interesting tweet from your mother. And it said, at Vimes the dog, because he has his own Twitter account, I'm very grateful for Kilkee Rescue rescuing me, thanks to the Coast Guard. So Brian immediately rang my mother. I said, I'd better not, just in case. And got a version of that story from her, which was a lot less complete, which said that he had fallen 50 feet. Right. And then we saw in the Clare Herald the next day that he had fallen 300 feet. So yeah, we were kind of in shock. We wandered around Florence in a daze really after that, to be honest.
He even ended up in the BBC News, didn't he?
BBC, MSNBC in the US, La Stampa in Italy. He's pretty famous by now, yeah.
The nice thing though, Brian, is you're so grateful, as Miriam was saying, and you want to do something, don't you, to say thanks?
I do indeed, Miriam. So what I'm going to do is in September, the last weekend in September, I'm going to walk from Kilkee to Doolin, 2 Coast Guard units, for a sponsored walk. So if you can check out Vimes the dog on Facebook, the donation system is there for it, and he's been rescued twice. The First time was Limerick Animal Welfare when we got him as a rescue dog, and the second time was thanks to the Coast Guard and some very good people. Even though he's not a person, he is still a great companion, so I want to give something back. So I'll be walking that in the last week of September.
That's great, Brian.
And any support people can give would be appreciated.
Well, look, I know there are other, huge, more important, serious stories in the country, but this was a lovely story and it's such a happy ending. We're delighted to do it. So, Marion, Deirdre, Brian, thanks so much. And Vimes, well done to you. You're surviving again.
Thank you so much.
No, no,